It's time for another chill session, folks. Yeah, honestly, the last video didn't do too well as expected, but screw it, man. I had fun making the last one, so we'll just chalk this series up as an outlet for my urge to talk about random crap during an off day, like today. And the people who did watch it had overwhelmingly positive feedback, so yeah, let's just keep this thing going. Still pushing for a Sunday chill day video, it just feels right. I have another story for you guys today. The last one was half comical, half depressing. This one's more on the serious side, but I'll try to splash in some goofy BS to balance out all the gloom. I promise after this, I swear, the next one will be completely lighthearted. That one's gonna be about another work-related story, though within my current job. But that's next week. Here's this week. A tale of an ambitious boy named Savage Boy. Oh my god. I know I said this was a serious video, but I know that name alone just instantly shattered what semblance of seriousness it has. Look, bear with me, alright? It leads up to something Mega Man related, I swear. This was roughly 12 or 13 years ago, back in high school. God damn, I'm old. Anyway, this kid prattled on about how famous of a rapper he was going to be. Of course, I'm not going to tell you the guy's real name, but we can safely refer to his rapper name, Savage Boy. Scrawny little dude, but his dream was certainly big. The guy was full of character, though he definitely received a ton of attention that was both good and bad for him. You can imagine with such an audacious name that came with playing the part too. He stood out. Boy did he. And eyes glued to his presence once it was made known. From dropping his freestyles through the hallways and breezeways to his cocky demeanor, he played up the Savage to an impressive degree of persistence. It almost gave you the notion that, hey yeah, this guy might cleave his way through to the top someday with confidence like that. But that's where things start going off the rails. You see, it doesn't take a bachelor's degree to realize it wasn't all that black and white. As I'm sure many of you are well aware, teenagers are fucking evil. The attention and hype the guy generated from his peers was surface level clownery and masked praise that held obvious notions of mockery from spectators. Me, perspective. Of course, Savage wasn't like the brightest guy, and he never caught wind of this. The fakeness didn't register, and he took it as having a strong following, when in fact everyone was secretly making fun of him. A more subtle form of bullying. There were like the rare kids who didn't give a shit and openly belittled the guy, but you can say that confidence boost from his fake fans did provide a backbone with a strong foundation. The dude didn't falter, and hey, I can respect him for that. Even though the circumstances that led up to that mental fortitude were based on a lie. But there was another problem. He lacked a genuine critic. As a result of everyone egging him on, an ego formed. And boy, are egos a terrible thing to have. When you're raised up to believe you're infallible, you're not able to experience failure early on when you're expected to be an amateur. I'm not talking about his rapping either. That applies to anything. So when senior year ended and everyone went their separate ways, Savage seemingly flew under the radar. I honestly forgot about the guy. Until recently, over a decade later. One day at work, a guy came in delivering a pizza to a nurse or something. He didn't know where he was going, so he asked me for directions. I was taken aback because the guy looked eerily familiar. A few good seconds later, after I pointed him to the right direction, cogs just went off in a freaking frenzy in my head until it clicked. Holy hell, that was Savage Boy! I did call out to him before he could get far and asked for confirmation of his real name. It matched up, and while the nostalgia poured in, so did the itchy feeling that his Pizza Man attire didn't quite align with how I'd envisioned him 10 years later. He looked so mellow and dry, and his eyes were devoid of any happiness. I felt terrible in the same breath when I asked him how his rapping was doing. All Savage could respond with was, nah. It was such a non-answer, but in the same instance, I deciphered those three mumbling words like the most complex code from the nerdiest IT guy. I didn't need his clarity. That reluctance to tell me anything just really opened it up to me that everything had gone to crap for him. That ambition of his shattered in more fragments than some grand cathedral's monochromatic glass window. I didn't press it. I just took a few moments to catch up with the guy for a bit and let him go about his delivery before some ravenous nurse could potentially gobble the poor guy up. But yeah, the look of defeat didn't just lie in his eyes, it traveled all over. His steps lacked the same confidence and swagger they once did. Man, a lot of BS can happen within 11 years, and while I knew nothing about it in detail, I could tell he finally received some critics, and they probably ripped his life and aspirations asunder. Caused my mind to trail back to the past. What if I did better? What if I could have been that one person early on to, tell him like it really was, but at the same time befriend him? Expose him to the truth that he needs to fail before he could succeed, but still be that genuine fan encouraging him in the corner to better his art. Who knows, maybe that wouldn't have made a difference and maybe it'd have just made things worse. But I can tell that I was looking at a broken, lonely man with a fragmented dream he seemingly gave up on. No one must have believed in him in his dreams, and that's really sad. Reflected that on myself. I'm a package deal of failures, and while I also lack cheerleaders to oomph my determination, I found a way to embrace my failures and travel those bumpy roads to the present day, holding steadfast to dreams and aspirations that not even the nastiest of critics and my worst enemies can break me. Seeing the tragedy that was Savage Boy's dream shook me a bit that night to where it was all I was thinking about until it was time to go home. Savage was led to believe that he was infallible, and yet when he did eventually fall, it must have been a hard drop to rock bottom. I've fallen that deep before, and I know how to get out of that pit. That doesn't mean when you get out of that shadowy place, the stars align and success is imminent. No, it's just that once you're out, you're a renewed person with new opportunities to seize, and you'll have the fortitude to stand strong enough to not fall back in. Looking back at all of that, it makes me also reflect on how easily people give up on something as simple as trying to get better at a video game when they really desire to. It's a smaller comparison to a huge life goal, but similar in nature to where once a player experiences failure, they're prepared to toss the controller, rant and sling curses of unfairness, perhaps even curse people who are actually pretty good at the game, then quit. I've seen that countless times in the Mega Man community, no, more predominantly in my own community. That throwing in the towel when failure knocks them upside the head is frighteningly common. That somehow, people like me, who have failed at these games numerous unfathomable times and honed my skills through persistence and patience, are somehow the problem, which I have no idea what sense that makes, but I digress. Talent isn't inherent. That's my philosophy. Maybe some people are naturally attuned to achieving great things, but just because they had a bit of privilege, luck, and connections doesn't mean that's something that defines them as a person. Failure, and your reaction to that downfall, determines if you're worthy for success. That you're mentally capable of becoming a strong, successful person in the years to come, so long as you're actively working to get shit done. Something less complex to get the engine started works wonders. In 2018, for an example, I was absolutely fed up with being in the pit and forcibly crawled my way out of it to bring some luster back in my life. I wanted to start small before I go in big with my writing career. I started with YouTube, see if I can take the channel seriously and grow it, because I made it way back in 2009 and barely gave it any meaningful attention. Fast forward to 2021 and I've achieved 10,000 subscribers. Using my experience in Mega Man games to captivate an audience was a job in and of itself, and while being a YouTuber isn't my dream job, it was a nice small goal of building a following that proved to me that I can put in the work for a more meaningful goal. And hey, I got a nice little side hustle / secondary income for my stubbornness. A lot of you out there are pretty young. Majority of you much younger than I, based off the analytics. Saying this as a soon-to-be 29-year-old man not too long off into his 30s, I've got one piece of advice for you. Don't let failure consume you. Embrace it and learn from it. Don't wallow. Keep a strong head, set goals, keep them small, and when you break your limits, set new goals that are more ambitious. Learn from Savage Boy. If you don't have a cheerleader or anyone supporting you, be your own damn cheerleader. Pull yourself up and back up on your feet, because no one in this selfish world is going to do it for you. Invoke change in yourself and fight to be better than who you were yesterday. Remain mentally infallible.